I'm Leslie Danahy, Assistant Dean of the Bold Center. So I'm glad everyone's here, and I always want to give a special shout out to our sponsor, Chris Folio. She's a Douglas alumna. Her generosity makes this conference possible every year. So I thank Chris, and I've had a lot of fun getting to know her over the years. She's a dynamic person and a successful businesswoman. In addition to Abby, Chris is also an entrepreneur. She started her own business, community investment strategies, and providing affordable communities and affordable housing, and she just does a great job. But I want to thank Abby Melone for being here, and I know you're busy, you're running your own company, you have a lot going on, but I'd like to introduce you to our students and then let you give our keynote number 2, which is called Women in Entrepreneurship, the Role of Resilience. And Abby Melone is the founder, President and CEO of Capital Analytics, which is a dynamic media company that produces in-depth business intelligence, high-level networking conferences and leadership summits, and cutting-edge digital content through its video and podcast series. Abby's a Rutgers graduate, and she started her career in publishing at Wiley, which is one of the top US Fortune 500 companies. She later joined Oxford Business Group, which is an international research and consultancy firm, where she started as the county director, but was soon promoted several times to regional director, managing director. She sat on the board. And during her tenure there, she oversaw the company's Middle East operations and was selected to spearhead the company's expansion into Latin America. So then she decided to start her own company, Capital Analytics, in 2014, and she has been growing her business ever since. So Abby, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to hearing your message.
Awesome. Well, hello, Douglas. Thank you, Rutgers, Leslie Danahy, for inviting me here today. When Leslie and I first talked about being the keynote, we were still in that part of 2020 where we thought we would be over this by now, over the shelter in place, over the face masks, over the social distancing. Well, here we are, October, and life hasn't returned to the way it was prior to March 2020. And if we're all honest with ourselves, it probably never will. Life, the way we interact, the way we do business, the way we find jobs, will forever be changed by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know this sounds a bit ominous and a little grim, but really it isn't. It's change, and change is good. In fact, change and the challenge that it entails is just a part of that scary, frustrating, enjoyable, and incredibly wonderful thing we call life. And that's really why you're all here today, because you're thinking about your life, and you're especially about your future. It's a career conference after all. But just thinking about the future itself can be a scary process. There's so many unknowns, so many variables to consider. Will I make the right decision? And when I'm challenged, will I know how to deal with it and emerge better for it? Most importantly, will I have the resilience to overcome the hurdles that no doubt will be put in my way? Today, I'd like to share with you some moments in my life where my resilience was put to the test, and what those experiences taught me about myself, my career, and my life that ultimately helped me become the best version of me. The moments when you'll need to be met with resilience will be many and varied. They'll come at you from all directions of your life, whether personal or professional. One of my first tests of resilience happened right here at Rutgers. As a freshman, I was a dance major, and on the dance team. This is actually how I envisioned my future, dance. It was so exciting to be at Rutgers, but more importantly, I was so honored to be a part of the Rutgers dance team. Rutgers dancing was everything to me. No lie, I slept, I ate, I breathed, I did everything around being a member of that team. And it was time to prepare for national. I knew I'd be a shoo-in to be on the performing team. I was a fabulous dancer after all, right? Well, here's where that crazy thing called life happened. Of course, I wasn't chosen. I cannot tell you what a blow it was to me. I couldn't believe that I wasn't good enough to be part of the team. I questioned my skills. I questioned how talented of a dancer I was. I doubted myself. All of that sadness really came out as anger. I was angry at the coach. I was angry at the girls who made the team. And I'm sure my attitude was poor. But I didn't give up. Instead, the experience motivated me to go to New York, where I took classes and owned my craft. And it was through taking these classes in New York that I was asked to perform with Liza Minnelli, not only in London at Royal Albert Hall, but also in New York City on Broadway. Broadway! That opened up my performing opportunities even more, and later that summer, I danced at the MTV Music Awards, which was pretty cool for an 18-year-old trying to make her way in the entertainment business. Throughout this experience, my resilience was severely tested, and it pushed me to move outside of my comfort zone, like traveling to New York to take classes with people who were at the top of their performing careers and trying to get a place at the table, which I ultimately did. This moment of resilience pushed me into the performing career I wanted, but it also did something else. It allowed me to reflect. In doing that, I learned not being picked for the performing team wasn't a bad thing. My coach, in fact, was trying to teach me something, and I wasn't picking up the lesson at that moment. I now understand she was trying to teach me that patience is a virtue, and that there was more for me to learn if I wanted to be a part of a team, that sometimes supporting your team on the sidelines is even more important than being center stage. Unfortunately, due to youth and the hubris that comes along with it, I missed that lesson at the time, but I will never forget it. The next moment I'd like to share with you is my career in international media. There were two things I knew to be absolutely certain when I came to Rutgers. One was that I loved to dance, and the other was that I loved to travel. Being on the dance team and performing with Liza Minnelli was satisfying my need to dance. To satisfy my desire to travel, I decided to go abroad for my studies, 2 semesters in fact, once in Spain and once in Argentina. One thing leads to another, as they say, and those experiences unearthed a need in me to live and work abroad. I needed to discover more about this world and who I was, and maybe who I could be in it. Right after college, I got a job with an international research and consultancy firm. My first station was in Malaysia. It was the first time in Asia, and everything was exciting. There wasn't a food I wouldn't try or a street I wouldn't walk down. My motto was definitely leave no stone unturned. Shortly after my time in Malaysia, I was sent to Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. At the time, the Middle East was never a place I thought I would go to in my life. And here I was, embarking on what would be the next 6 years of my professional career. Now, when I say I stood out, I stood out. I didn't look like the locals. I didn't dress like the locals. It was a very jarring experience for me to adapt to and to be in such a different culture and so far away from home. There were moments when I didn't know if I was doing the right thing, or I would ask myself, should I go home? But there was something in me that said, no, feel this fear and do it anyway. And so I did just that. I read copious numbers of books and articles about the Middle East and geopolitics and the relationships between the United States and the countries in the region. I made friends with locals, and I learned about their culture and their customs. I kept asking questions, even if I didn't know which ones to ask at the time. And yes, there were moments I felt I didn't fit in. And I felt that I wasn't the one I felt that I was the one who was least informed at the table. It was easier to let myself want to return back to the safety of New Jersey, but I didn't. I took this as a moment to test and learn about myself, dig down deep, put myself in uncomfortable situations and ask myself why I would feel that way. This world is big and diverse, and my experiences in the Middle East has only made my eyes more open to other people's paths, something that I think is incredibly applicable today as we face social unrest that permeates in many cities around our nation. And that brings me to this, shall we say, unusual year. I became an entrepreneur about 5 years ago when I started Capital Analytics, and it felt like very much the next natural step for me. I'd reached the pinnacle of what I was doing with my international media experience, and I believe I had the skill sets to embark on my own. I had great family support, and when I told my dad I was ready to start my own business, he asks, when do we start? Today, we're a media company that produces business intelligence on metro areas in the United States. Our platform includes annual economic reports, including economic analysis, video series, podcasts, and leadership summits and events. To do our work, we spend 6 to 8 months in any given metro area interviewing over 200 top CEOs, compiling what becomes close to 200-page analysis on the opportunities in market. Sounds like fun. It is. But you could argue that an entrepreneur, your resilience is tested each and every day. Being an entrepreneur is not checking out at 5 o'clock and going home, leaving the workplace behind you. Being an entrepreneur is waking up in the middle of the night, worried about an employee who is struggling in their position. Being an entrepreneur is walking into the office expecting one day and leaving having had a completely different one. I've had to be adaptable, and be nimble every step of the way. But this year has been like none other. When COVID-19 hit the United States, I started preparing for the worst. Would our advertisers and sponsors still support us during this time? Would our subscribers purchase our access to our reports? There was so much economic uncertainty, and the burden on my shoulders was bigger than I ever had before. But rather than shelter in place and do nothing, I leaned into the situation. I started filming our interviews with CEOs and putting them on our YouTube channel, Invest Insights. In 10 weeks, I'd filmed over 100 videos, quickly expanding our audience into a new world. That audio became a podcast, further expanding our media platform and footprint. And yes, we had to reroute all of our interaction and with the business community to Zoom, but we did it flawlessly. And while our conferences are not in person, we're hosting them virtually, much like we're doing today. And we're still having to have thought-provoking discussions with the business community despite all these challenges brought on by the pandemic. This year has tested my resilience so much more than I was prepared for, but I'm so pleased with my team for making it through these uncharted waters, for supporting me and the decisions I made during this time to keep us safe and afloat, with all of our readers and sponsors who continue to support our good work each and every day. I can't think of a more important time to have economic intelligence available, and we are walking that path. But it does not go without long days. I've worked some of the longest and arduous days of my life these past number of months. Not everything has worked out perfectly. There has been so many ideas that we started with and immediately had to stop and pivot because they just weren't going to work out. Others have taken off fantastically. But here we are, and I'm more optimistic about the future than I have ever been. We've been hiring on some really bright talent, and we're expanding to new markets this year. And in a time of economic slowdown, we are ramping up. That's not only due to the resilience I've had to dig down deep and find in these trying times, but also due to the resilience of my teams and colleagues. That's the other key about the change and resilience. You'll often find you won't have to face everything alone. Find the support you need, but more importantly, give back what you get. So what I'm trying to tell you today with these long stories, when you're presented with challenges in your life, always look at them as an opportunity. It's the moments of challenge and that enables us to grow, redefine ourselves, be better people. When I was at Rutgers on the dance team, with the challenge of being left out absolutely shook me to my core, but it also pushed me to find more opportunities while teaching me valuable lessons that have served me well later in life. My experience abroad taught me that I do not know everything. There is so much out there to learn and understand, and if we approach it with compassion and open arms, we can leave this world a better place. And just because it's different, does not mean it is bad. And in my experience as an entrepreneur, I have learned that your team is everything. If you can be the leader that they can believe in, you can create a force to be reckoned with. And that's where I feel I am blessed now. As you consider your future careers, you're doing so in a time of economic uncertainty, and the future may be a little less clear than in times of economic certainty. But it's your future. The decision you make will determine your path. How you persevere through the challenges will determine your achievements. Be strong, be true to yourself, and in the moments of greatest adversity, be resilient.